Hello, I'm Kathy Lee from Kathy's Creative Place, and I have some cards I'm going to make with the Country Craft Creations May Craftology Box. And this month's box is the elements that we're using are from Simple Stories, and it is the Simple Vintage Essentials, or excuse me, Botanicals. 3, 2, 1. Hello, I'm Kathy Lee from Kathy's Creative Place. Thanks for joining me today. I'm going to be sharing some card tutorials and some other projects that I'm working on for Country Craft Creations May Craftology Box. And the elements that we're using this month are from Simple Stories, Simple Vintage Botanicals. And in your kit, you'll get the 6x8 paper pad. It's really pretty. Has lots of pretty vintage colors, and these patterns are small so that you can use them for card making. And they also have in here some 3x4 card type sentiments to use on your cards, and they're really nice. There's thank you, thinking of you, sympathy, just because, just some uh, really great artistry and pretty botanical colors and flowers. So you've got that, and then I'll be using some of the chipboard elements for the cards, and then you should have gotten 2 sheets of stickers, which is fabulous. There's all kinds of really small, pretty little elements and great sentiments that we can use on our cards. And then these are very large stickers, so some of these can be used like on your scrapbook pages, and you can even cut them apart and use them on your mini albums. So we're going to be using those. And then in your kit, you received the Simple Basics papers. These are coordinating papers to match the collection. And then the 12x12 papers, I'll just go through them very quickly. Lots of pretty ephemera type papers. These are great for layouts because there's lots of pretty white space you can fill with embellishments and mixed media and your photos. Just really pretty. And there's the back of this one. Flowers and butterflies. That's what this collection just screams, all flowers and butterflies. And then this is this one. In the back, some pretty diagonal stripes. Again, that collage-y looking ephemera paper, really pretty. I love the beautiful colors and how they work so well together. And then butterflies, and on the back of this is kind of like some print script, and that's beautiful. I love the color. This pink is actually kind of like a muted fuchsia, I would almost call it. It's really pretty. And then this one, gorgeous graphics, pretty green gingham. And then here are the 3x4 cut aparts, and the back, then the 4x4 cut aparts, and the back of that one, pretty birds and butterflies. Love this paper collection. And here's some cute 2x2 cut aparts. I love these because these will work really nicely on cards. And pretty polka dot on the back of that one. And then the 4x6 cut aparts. Very botanical. And I love the really pretty polka dot, green polka dot print. Love the white space here. You can do sprays and mixed media, and then your photos. Oh, I have so many ideas. Love this color, my favorite, an aqua blue. And oh look, this this artistry is kind of like the seed bags for flowers. I just love the pretty imagery. And then a beautiful muted pink. And that's the papers. And then you also should have gotten some seam binding, pink, green, and then I think you also may have received like some yellow. I don't have any, so I'm going to be just using some yellow satin ribbon, and then you also probably received some Prima flowers. Now I did not, so I've just got several from my stash that I'm going to use. The colors that match the papers. That's what I'm going to do, is just kind of pick and choose out of some of the Petaloo, Prima, and Market 49 Market uh, flowers. Okay, so I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. I've chosen to make 10 cards. So this is kind of like my little personal challenge. I'm going to make 10 cards using a one sheet wonder guide. So what I've done is I've basically created guide, this cutting guide, and I'm going to use this pretty butterfly paper, and I'm going to cut it according to this guide. And then I'm going to add a few other papers just to kind of complement them. And then we'll use the ribbon, some flowers, some stickers, all the other elements that go with this. So I am going to put this cutting guide in my box, and I'll link it in the description so that you can get access to it. But so I'm going to cut my paper based on this guide, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've cut my pieces according to my template, and then I also labeled them by the alphabet, because since there's 10 cards we're making, I'm going to be videotaping this in 3 parts. That way it goes quicker when you're just making a few at a time. So for the first session here, we're going to make 4 cards, and I am going to be using just simple note cards, and you can buy note cards in your craft store, and they're basically 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, or you can use cardstock and cut an 8 1/2 by 11, either in half for a left folding card, or for a top folding card, you cut on the 8 1/2 inch side. So we're going to be making both types, left folding and top folding. For the first cards we're going to be using, in this session I'm going to, like I said, make 4 cards. So we are going to be using section A. So I've put little stickies on here to identify those pieces. The other thing you should know is because I'm going to be using both the front or the back for these cards, I didn't want to put like pencil marking and then have to go and erase and then mess up my pretty paper. So I just use little stickies. So be aware of that. So for one of the first of 4, I'm going to be using A and C. Okay, that's going to be the parts of card number 1. And then I'm going to be using D and E, which are actually the diagonal cut pieces. Now there's 2 diagonal cuts here. I and J, I've also cut diagonal, but you don't have to. You can leave that as one piece and use that for your card. So you don't really have to cut it in diagonal if you don't want to. So we're going to be using D and E for card number 2. And then we're going to be using G for card number 3. And then M, which is one of these long strips down here, for card number 4. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. And we're going to start with card number 1. And what I'm going to do on my note card, because this piece is cut with a really, really wide border, and I think I'll use a left folding card for this one. A really wide border, I'm going to use some coordinating paper underneath of it. So let's see, I'm going to use, I think I'll use this pretty pink, or maybe the green. The green would probably look really pretty. So I'm going to use some of the Simple Basics green cardstock. So let me pull that out here. And I want the green, not the yellow. So your Simple Basics cardstock, it's double-sided as well. So this is actually the yellow. It looks, I know it kind of looks green, but it isn't. And then on the other side, it's blue. The pink has kind of an ivory. So I'm going to be using the green, which is, I think, on the other side of the pink, light pink. Yes, it is. Okay. So I'm going to be using this green. Really pretty. Yeah, that will make a nice contrast. The one thing that I really like to strive for is contrast. And when you're using different patterns, a lot of times, well, for instance, if I did choose to use this light pink, it kind of gets lost in here, and that's the reason why I decided not to use that as my matte piece. I needed something a little bit darker to give it some contrast. So we are going to cut this green cardstock. It doesn't matter what part of it. Either any part of this paper will do. So I think I'm going to cut. So I'm going to cut this at 1/4 inch larger than this. So that would be 4 by 5 1/4. So the 4 by 5 1/4 gives me a 1/8 inch border for my note card. So now I've got my green piece to put on underneath my pattern paper. We can take the A off of there. And I'll use that again. I don't like to waste paper, so I'll use these little Post-it note stickies again. Okay, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to take this piece, letter C, and we're going to flip that over, and we're going to use this piece on our card, probably about 1/3 of the way down. Kind of like a border, and then we're going to find something to put here for our sentiment. I'm kind of liking this one, and I think what we're going to do here is well, we're going to need to make it stand out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to also matte this with probably some of the dark pink of the Simple Basics. So we'll use that. So we'll just matte it on here about 1/8 of an inch, And even though this is a sticker, I am still going to use my art glitter glue and glue it because I don't want it coming off of that paper. Okay. And I'm just going to freehand cut it with my scissors. And if you want, you can use your ruler or your trimmer. But I'm pretty confident with my scissors, so. And then got about an 1/8 inch. There we go. And then I think I'll take some dimensionals or chipboard. I always like to use up my scrap chipboard, which is perfect for using it as a dimensional. And we'll pop that up and then add probably a couple of flowers, and that card is all done. Okay, so for the first card, I lost some footage, so I'm just going to tell you the first card. I finished this off, and this is the segment A and C of our cut patterns, and then I added a sticker, matted on some pink Simple Basics cardstock, and then I added this little sticker from one of the sticker sheets. Let's see if I can show you. It's this little one here, and it says Best Ever. And then I added a couple of flowers around the top right corner of my little inside. I used one of the 3x4 cut aparts from the 6x8 pad, and this one says Wishing You the Best. And I thought that was really cute because it kind of uses this little sentiment, best ever, from the front, kind of carries into the inside. So that's the first card. Okay, so the second card, we're going to work on that one. Okay, so for card number 2, we are using the diagonal cut letter D and E from our template. And it's basically a, give you that here, 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, and then it's just cut from corner to corner from the top left to the bottom right. Okay, so I've also included a piece of the gingham paper, and this is cut at 4 by 5 1/4 to fit our card, and this is going to be a top folding card, horizontal. So and when I started to put together this card, I realized that it needs a little bit less than heavy seam binding for a ribbon. So here I'm going to use this 2x2 cut apart as my sentiment. So I'm going to use Love Life, and I'm going to put some scrap chipboard on the back to just pop it up. And then I'm actually going to use some thread instead of seam binding, and I'm going to wind this around several times. So we're going to do that. Okay, here after I get these pieces on. I also used brush corduroy to ink my edges, my edges of my pattern paper pieces and my sentiments. So we'll adhere all those now. Okay, so now I'm going to take my thread and I'm using some Recollections thread from Michaels, and it's just this stuff. It's called twine, and it's a lot heavier than thread, of course. And I'm just going to wind this around several times around my card. So because I'm going to, because I'm going to take my middle sentiment here, my bow, I'm actually going to tie right here next to my sentiment in the middle. So I'm going to wind this around several times around the front of my card. So I'm just going to hold it here probably about a good 8-9 inches. And I'm just going to wind 1, 2, 3, and 4. About 4 times. So I get 3 pieces around the middle. And it's nice if they're kind of like they're not symmetrical. So I'm just going to kind of put this here because this is where my sentiment's going to go. So I want to now I'm going to shorten up my loops so I have a nice bow for the card. We don't want the loops too large, otherwise it overpowers the card. Pull that one up a little bit. Okay. Now, and it doesn't have to be perfect because really it shouldn't be perfect. So I'm going to trim up my tails here. Okay. Now, I'm going to take my sentiment and glue that on. And I apologize if I'm getting out of camera because I'm in my new craft room and everything is a lot different in the new craft room. So we are going to put our flowers on here. And with this little flower here, it's one of those little Primazella flowers. It's the same color as this pretty teal. I just put a little pearl in the middle, just a flat back pearl. Okay, and then there's that card. Now what we're going to do, I want this to dry. I don't want to do too much and then scurry out my my glue, but we're going to put this is another 2x2, and the sentiment is it's the little things in life, and I'm going to put that just right in the middle. It complements the front of the card's sentiment. And just kind of center it. And I'm just eyeballing it. I'm not even measuring. But you can, of course. So I put it in the middle, and that's the middle of our card. So there's that. Okay, that's card number 2. Okay, we're ready for card number 3. And for this one, we're going to have, again, a top folding note card that is 4¼ by 11 and scored at 5½. So it becomes a 5½ by 4¼ inch card. Now for this one, I used a letter number G. From our template, it is this piece here, which is 4½ by 3¾ If you can see that. Okay, so that piece is what we're using here. What I did is I used some of the Simple Basics, and this piece is the dark pink, and then I just measured 5¼ by 4, and then I used my die. You can use a die or an edge punch or anything that you'd like for your border, because I just want kind of a cute little scallop border here at the bottom of my card. And then I'm going to take that butterfly piece, which is the G, and I'm going to use that as my card piece. Now for this one, we are going to we're going to ink our edges again with brushed corduroy. That's what I've been using for all of my pattern pieces and even my cardstock, or rather the Simple Basics. So I'm just going to distress my edges, and this just allows it to be a little bit more defined, gives it more contrast on that ivory cardstock. Okay, now we're going to set the note card aside for a second, and we're going to take our butterfly piece and we're going to adhere that to our Simple Basics. So I'm just going to use my art glitter glue. And we're going to set that on our pattern, on our piece, about 1/8 of an inch border at the top and the sides. Scallop border, basically as much as you've cut your edge punch or your border. Okay, so now we've got this piece. We're going to use some ribbon, and I decided not to use the pink, green, or yellow ribbon only because I chose this as my sentiment. So this is a chipboard piece. It says The Good Life, and then I punched it out. I distressed it with my brushed corduroy, and then this piece of the pink Simple Basics is just 2½ by 1¾ and then I use my scallop punch, which is kind of like a tag punch, right? So I'm going to use that as my sentiment, and I'm also going to use some scrap chipboard. I'm going to put that on my sentiment, and I've already adhered my sentiment to my scallop punch piece. Okay. And then I'm going to put that in the middle. So we're basically going to take, now I decided again, because I wanted this, I wanted my ribbon to match the color of my type or my text on my sentiment. I decided to go with the seam binding, which is kind of a turquoisey aqua blue. It's really, really pretty. So I'm just going to take a piece of, and this is about 14 inches. You can actually probably use a lot less than 14 inches because um, uh, we're going to snip this, and then I'm just going to do a what we call a square knot. And I'm going to tighten it up just a little, pull the edges so it'll sit a little bit flat, and then this is going to go around this piece here. So because I'm going to put it, I'm not going to put it in the middle. My sentiment is in the middle, so I'm going to put it a little bit off to the right side. So I'm just going to cut this and then sort of in the middle, just off to the edge, about a quarter of the way down. And that's going to be, and this is going to go around my piece before I put it on my note card, is I'm going to trim these edges off here because I'm not going to need all of this ribbon. Oh, and that actually is the square knot. See how pretty that is? So I probably should have cut a little bit shorter on this side. So I'm going to put it here. I'll pull it so that it's diagonal from left on the bottom to right on the top. There we go. Isn't that pretty? Now, of course, I'm going to probably take another piece, like either some chipboard or maybe a heart cut apart or something, and I'm going to cover up the square knot anyway. So okay, so that is that piece. So what we're going to do is we're going to put now, because I've wrapped that around, you see how it has made some nice markers for me. This to this. Okay. And that's where I'm going to put my score tape. So I'm going to grab some 3/4 inch score tape and just pull up a piece. And it's not going to, I'm just going to put it at the ends. I'm not going to worry about the ribbon being bonded to the front of the card. At least not at this point. Okay. So we're going to turn this over. I'm just going to take the backing off my score tape. Okay. And then I'm going to put it right about, probably about a fourth of the way down. So if you take your, if you visualize your piece, here's kind of the middle. There's a quarter of the top and bottom. So I'm just going to kind of put it right about there. I want to put it over so that the knot's a little bit toward the right side. And then I'll just wrap it around. There we go. Doesn't have to be perfect as long as you get it here, or at least fairly straight on your card front. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to give it a little bit of trim, a nice little angle to make it pretty. Okay. Now, like I said, I probably will put some type of element on top of my knot, but before I do that, I'm going to put some glitter glue, art glitter glue, underneath my ribbon so it stays nice and tight there. So I'm just going to let that sit for a minute. Okay, then we're going to take our sentiment, oops, and we're going to put that right in the middle. And again, right in the middle. And I just eyeball it. Okay. All right. And then this piece will go on my card. I also use this 3x4 cut apart from the 6x8 pad, and it says sending love, and I just gave it a little bit of distress ink with brush corduroy. I'm just going to put that right on the middle of the inside of my card. Okay, right in the middle. Doesn't need to be real straight. You can actually put it at an angle. That would be really pretty too. Okay, there's the inside of our card. And there is our card. Okay, so now I will decide what I'm going to do with my bow, and then I'll actually be back for card number 3. And we will, or excuse me, card number 4 already. Okay, so this is card number 4, and we're using paper piece number or letter M, which is at the bottom of our template. And basically what I've done, this is going to be a top folding card on the long end, so kind of a horizontal. So this is the 8.5 inch by 5.5, and then it's scored at 4.25. And we're going to use that as our card base. And then what I've done is, this is some of the simple basics. This is the yellow cardstock, even though I know it probably looks green, and it's really not. It's kind of a greenish yellow. So this is the green, but this is more of the yellow sort of color. So what I've done is I used an older Tim Holtz Alteration Sizzix edge embossing folder, and you can use anything, or you don't have to use that. You can stamp random small little like roses or hearts or anything, because what we're going to do, we're just going to create kind of like a pattern. So you don't have to even, you can leave it blank. But for this one, what I did is I decided to use this embossing folder. I put it at the top and at the bottom, and then I took my brush corduroy and just brushed a little bit of that brown light ink right over the embossing, because it gives it a little bit more of a distressed look, really brings that embossed feature out on the card. So I'm just going to keep doing that just a little bit more. There we go, and there we have our base. So we're going to use that, and we're going to put that on our base, on the base of our card. We're just going to use some art glitter glue for this piece, and of course, as you know, embossing likes to soak up glue, so make sure you get it at least on the top part of that feature, because we want it to adhere to the card base. Okay, so put that down and give it a nice push. I'm gonna just a little bit more here, because I can see the bottom is a little darker than the top, so I want to get it kind of a little bit more even. See how that really stands out? It's really pretty. And then we're going to take our little butterfly piece and we're going to glue that to a piece of cardstock. And I'm using, for my base, for my note cards, I'm using the artisan cardstock. So I'm just cutting from my 12 by 12 cardstock to create my A4 size cards. And this is 1.5 by 5.25, and that is the M piece is 1.25 by 5, so it will fit on this piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to take that piece and just center it in the middle and adhere it. Okay. As close to the middle as I can. And I just eyeball it. I don't do a lot of measuring and just make it. Sometimes I do that, but you know what? It's handmade and it is what it is. And then I'm using this piece from the chipboard segment. I'm using this pretty, kind of reminds me of a lily type flower. And then I'm also using this little tag. It says lovely, and I put this little light colored yellow flat back pearl on that little tag. So I'm going to put that right here in the middle of my, let's get all that paper off. So as you know, I like to make sure that my pieces, even though it's self-sticky, it's not all that self-sticky. And I'm going to just kind of put it in the middle, just like that. Okay. And then for this cute little tag, reminds me of a jean pocket, because it's got cute little stitching around the sentiment. So lovely. And I'm going to use my glitter glue, and then I'm going to put that right here. Kind of a little angled. Okay, now I've got some of the pink seam binding that came with your kit, and I'm going to use my Bow Easy, and I'm going to use this size, and I'm just going to create a cute little bow. And if you've never used one of these, I've made this with even chipboard many times. I have one of these that I've had for like ages. So you can actually take a piece of oops, there goes my bow, or there goes my seam binding. You can take a piece of chipboard and take a piece of chipboard and measure like maybe about an inch and a half, and then cut a large segment out of the middle. and then you'll be able to use that over and over again to make this size of bow. Now I need to grab my seam binding because it went on the floor here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is then I'm going to take, because this Bow Easy actually has several different sizes. So I'm just going to use this size. I'm going to put my ribbon on here, and you can use your Bow It All Zetter. I have one of those too, because I use those for other types of bows. I'm just going to wind it around like this, and then we thread it through the middle like this, and then this tail that comes around like this threads through that loop like that, and then it pulls. Okay, and then you turn it around, and ta-da, you have a perfect bow for your card. And all we need to do is take some glue and put that bow on our card. So I'm going to put my finger in these loops and kind of round it out. Give it some dimension. I'm going to put that right there so we can see the tag lovely. Okay. Alright, so my scissors. And a little snip here. Maybe a little shorter here. There we go. And then I just need some, oh, here, like this side better. Some art glitter glue. And there we go. And that's the front of our card. Okay. Very easy, easy, easy. Okay, so now that's our card, and then I will decide what I want to put on the inside, and then we'll be back toward the end, and I'll share all 4 of them. See you soon.